Tyler Perry torched his own reputation to expose Meghan Markle's. Nobody saw it coming. The 25th Bet Awards was supposed to be another glitzy night of celebration, but Perry, Hollywood's soft-spoken mogul who literally saved Meghan and Harry's asses in 2020, grabbed that mic and basically said, "Enough is enough," without saying her name once. The shade was so surgical, it left scars. Here's the tea that's been brewing for years, and it's scalding hot. Back in 2020, when Harry and Meghan rage quit the royal family, Perry was the knight in shining armor nobody asked for. He handed over the keys to his $18 million Beverly Hills mansion, covered their security, paid their bills, and basically bankrolled their American dream. At the time, it looked generous as hell. A friend helping friends navigate the chaos of ditching the crown. But allegedly, that friendship turned into something way more toxic. Sources whisper that Perry's generosity became Meghan's expectation, and Homie was getting emotionally drained faster than his bank account. The night Perry took that stage, he didn't drop Meghan's name directly. He's too smart for that. Instead, he told the story of someone who borrowed blessings like they're owed, but never returned the favor. The camera didn't pan to anyone specific, but if you knew the receipts, you knew exactly who was getting dragged. It was giving passive-aggressive masterclass, and the internet ate it up. Behind the scenes, insiders say Perry had been biting his tongue for literal years, but something finally snapped, and it wasn't pretty. The breaking point? Meghan allegedly hit him up for his private jet like it was an Uber request. No discussion about logistics, no mention of covering costs, just pure entitlement wrapped in a simple favor bow. When Perry declined, not because he couldn't afford it, but because he felt used, Meghan apparently lost her mind. That moment, sources say, was when Perry realized he wasn't helping a friend. He was enabling a user. And Perry wasn't the only one seeing red flags. Colleagues, staffers, and producers had been sliding into his DMs with warnings for months. The consensus? Meghan doesn't repay favors. She collects them like social currency, then ghosts people when they stop being useful. It's giving one-way friendship energy, and everyone was tired of it. At first, Perry ignored the chatter. He genuinely believed he was helping two people who needed support. But as the Netflix deals rolled in, as the Spotify millions stacked up, and as the thank you calls stayed silent, the pattern became undeniable. There was no plan to give back, ever. The night Perry stepped up to that mic, he wasn't just sharing a story, he was making a statement. Even the most generous people have breaking points, and when they reach them, the gloves come off. Meghan had built her entire brand on being the misunderstood woman silenced by the crown. But Perry wasn't the crown. He wasn't the tabloids. He was the guy who opened his doors, no strings attached, and now he was publicly calling her out. The timing was chef's kiss level brutal. Meghan and Harry had just started pitching a new documentary about power and freedom. But after Perry's speech, investors started backing out faster than you could say Archwell. The trust was shattered, the illusion cracked, and Meghan's last true ally in Hollywood just walked away. Wait till you hear how fast Hollywood turned on her next. The fallout was immediate and messy. Hollywood runs on unspoken rules and mutual back-scratching, so public call-outs are rare. But Tyler Perry isn't just anyone. He's a studio-owning powerhouse who moves with class and respect. When someone with that kind of clout throws shade, especially at someone he once protected, the ripple effect is massive. Phone calls started flying the next morning. A producer attached to Meghan and Harry's latest Netflix pitch reportedly withdrew support just hours after the BET Awards aired. Another investor, who'd already sat through 2 planning meetings, said bluntly, "I don't want to be involved in something that feels this toxic." That wasn't about the content, it was about the people behind it. Meghan's name, once a draw for platforms trying to look progressive and inclusive, suddenly became a red flag. The brand was toxic and everyone knew it. Back at Archwell, Meghan's PR team went into full damage control mode. They reached out to major media outlets, trying to flip the narrative. The strategy? Paint Perry as bitter and out of touch, someone who misunderstood Meghan's intentions. They offered exclusive interviews, behind-the-scenes footage, even floated a podcast rebuttal. But none of it stuck. Journalists weren't biting. If anything, the desperate push made things worse. It reeked of panic. The harder they tried to control the story, the more people wondered what exactly they were trying to hide. Behind the scenes, things got even messier. Friends close to Perry started sharing that he hadn't wanted to go public but felt cornered after years of emotional manipulation. He'd spent months debating whether to speak up, but the final straw wasn't the private jet drama or the business proposals with no reciprocity. It was the realization that Meghan was weaponizing their friendship for clout. One source familiar with Perry's inner circle revealed that Meghan tried to leverage his name to access a funding circle in early 2024. She mentioned his support in a pitch meeting without permission, suggesting he was a silent backer of her new media venture. When word got back to Perry, he was livid. That's when he decided to go public, not to gossip, but to protect his reputation from being hijacked. And that's when the floodgates opened. Other industry insiders started speaking out, and the stories were damning. A former assistant described working for Meghan as emotionally exhausting. They claimed she controlled every narrative, demanded absolute loyalty, and punished anyone who dared question her decisions. A producer who worked on the now-defunct Spotify deal said Meghan's obsession with perfection killed every good idea. She didn't want partners, they explained. She wanted yes men. Even Oprah's circle, once tight with Meghan, began quietly distancing themselves. Sources say there haven't been any friendly calls between the camps for months. When Perry's speech blew up, there was radio silence from Oprah's team. No defense, no solidarity, just strategic space. The dominoes were falling hard. Meghan had positioned herself as a symbol of female empowerment and independence, but now that image was being demolished by the very people who once supported her journey. The stories weren't coming from tabloids this time. They were coming from people who had actually worked with her, helped her, and in Perry's case, literally housed her. As the days passed, what started as one man's bold words turned into a cultural shift. Meghan Markle was no longer untouchable, and Hollywood was taking notes. The backlash didn't just hit Meghan's reputation. It started hitting where it really hurts: her bank account. Netflix reportedly began reevaluating its long-term commitment to Archwell Productions. Other potential investors pulled out faster than you could say Sussex brand. The foundation's financial future looked shaky as hell. Sources close to Archwell revealed that several internal projects had been paused, scheduled hires were frozen, and budget reviews were happening weekly. What was once a booming brand backed by celebrity buzz and major platforms was now surrounded by hesitation and damage control. Public trust was unraveling in real time. Meghan had long cultivated the image of a misunderstood woman navigating royal oppression, the voice of empowerment, the underdog who took on the monarchy. But with insiders sharing stories of emotional manipulation, excessive demands, and selective loyalty, people started questioning how much of that narrative was ever true. Social media sentiment, once split, began leaning heavily towards skepticism. Hashtags that used to support her were now flooded with criticism, memes, and side-by-side comparisons painting her as entitled and disingenuous. For someone who had meticulously curated every aspect of her public image, this wasn't just a PR hit, it was an identity crisis. The narratives she'd built her brand on, feminist icon, victim of royal cruelty, self-made media mogul, were all being dissected and doubted in real time. Even longtime fans found themselves staying silent. Media outlets that used to jump at the chance to publish glowing features were holding back. Nobody wanted to risk aligning with a brand in freefall. Behind closed doors, insiders say Meghan was in full panic mode. She allegedly fired off furious texts to Perry after the BET speech, accusing him of betrayal, humiliation, and damaging her family's legacy. But Perry didn't reply. Not then, not later. He was done, and that silence spoke volumes. Friends of the Hollywood mogul confirmed that he'd been emotionally cornered for years, pressured to give more, say less, and constantly stay loyal to someone who treated loyalty like currency. Other voices soon followed with similar stories. A respected publicist revealed that Meghan's team had attempted to blacklist journalists for asking unscripted questions. A former Archwell consultant disclosed that Meghan often ignored strategic advice if it didn't reinforce her personal narrative. One former staffer described the workplace as a place where gratitude went to die. The stories were damning, not because they were dramatic, but because they all echoed the same pattern: control, manipulation, and emotional leverage. Even major Hollywood names who usually stayed neutral began speaking with caution. Studio executives whispered about how challenging Meghan was to work with. Some joked that dealing with her team was like playing chess with a mirror, Nothing ever reflected back truthfully. And then came the numbers that made everything official. A recent poll showed support for the Sussexes in the US had plummeted by over 30% in the past year. In the UK, they were already seen as pariahs by many. Now the fallout had gone global. Sponsors were backing away, potential collaborators were ghosting, and Meghan's once rising empire was becoming a cautionary tale. Through it all, Harry remained mostly silent. Some say he's trying to salvage what's left of their public image behind the scenes. Others think he's just exhausted, burned out from years of media battles, family fallout, and now watching their inner circle collapse like a house of cards. The most devastating part? Tyler Perry's speech wasn't loud or angry. It didn't need to be. It was honest, quiet, and surgical, which made it absolutely lethal. He didn't just expose one moment of entitlement, he exposed an entire pattern of behavior that had been hidden behind carefully crafted PR campaigns and victim narratives. In a town where reputation is everything, Meghan Markle just learned that even royalty can be exiled twice. Once from the crown, and now from the culture that once embraced her. Perry's words weren't just a call-out. They were a wake-up call for an entire industry that had been enabling toxic behavior behind closed doors. The fairy tale was over, and the real story was just beginning to unfold. Hollywood had spoken, and it was saying no cap to fake friendships and one-way loyalty. Meghan's empire wasn't just cracking. It was crumbling, and everyone was watching it happen in real time. The culture had shifted, and there was no going back.